Hi everybody. Right, I'm going to talk to you today about conservatism and some of the key thinkers you need to know about in terms of the edXL A Level Politics specification. So, I guess conservatism begins really as a reaction against liberalism. So we're going to consider it in terms of the four strands of ideology we should always apply, whether it's conservatism, socialism, liberalism, feminism, nationalism, whatever it is we're looking at. Human nature, the state, society and the economy. And as I say, conservatism grows out of really concern in the late 1700s regarding the French Revolution, the American Revolution as well. I think shocked by the violence of the French Revolution of 1789, conservative thinkers promoted a return to hierarchy and order in society with limited change where needed, and that's what conservatism, you've got to understand, is all about. It's about deference to superiors, about a respect for tradition and traditional institutions, and a negative view of human behaviour underpinning its thinking. Conservatives as well regard themselves as empirical, 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 i.e. people that make judgments based on experience. So what are the core ideas of conservatism? Well, pragmatism is a big one. The idea that conservatists are pragmatic, so decisions are based on what is needed and beneficial, and that alone. An ideological agenda is not particularly pursued. It's more that decisions are reached in reaction to organic problems that emerge. So it's very much evolutionary rather than revolutionary. Evolutionary rather than revolutionary. It's big on tradition within this organic society. So traditional customs and methods provide structure to society, the royal family, the army, history, and that lessons should be drawn from history and from experience within a strong nation state. Empiricism, respect for property, change being slow and gradual. So pragmatism, tradition. There's also a belief in human imperfection, in the sense that behaviour is shaped by the environment, not by individuals. Humans are inherently selfish and so need to be controlled through laws, and it kind of taps into this idea in the Catholic Church maybe, or in the Bible indeed, of original sin, Judeo-Christian morality, organic society, the idea that society evolves over time and is more important than the individual. Paternalism, a paternalistic society in which society works best when it is unequal. The wisest and the strongest, if you like, and perhaps the wealthiest too, should govern and take responsibility for the lower classes. And this really feeds off an idea of medieval feudal system and hierarchy, but also the concept of noblesse oblige, the idea that one is obliged to govern and look after the poor. Heavy is the head that wears the crown and all that. And also the final strand is one of libertarianism, so support for free markets, individual freedoms respected by governments, and in a not so much socially liberal but economically liberal. So the idea of laissez-faire economics, allowing the market to pretty much decide the price of things and therefore its effect on individuals. Thatcherism is a particularly modern example of that within conservatism. So within conservatism itself we have three distinct strands we need to know about. Traditional conservatism, we've just been speaking about. One nation conservatism. Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister, would describe himself as a one nation Tory. And new right conservatism, or new right Tories as well. People like Rees-Mogg, Steve Baker, Nadine Dorries, Liz Truss, I think, would even describe herself as one of these. David Davis, some of the big beasts of the post-Brexit Tory party, that are much more sort of small state orientated, low tax, clearly orientated. So just to recap, traditional conservatists, human imperfection, authority needed to control society, limited reforms based on tradition, organic society needing change to conserve the past, to prevent radicalism, breaking out, anything like the French Revolution. It's evolve rather than revolt. Class divisions being inevitable, and really the key thinkers we need to talk about there are Hobbes and Burke, about which more in a minute. One nation conservatives, much more a strong, united kingdom in our sense. The guy to read on this for your exams is Michael Oakeshott. Look out for his, I think it's granddaughter or great niece, Isabel Oakeshott, who's a commentator, political commentator on TV quite a bit. So a society of classes within a strong nation state, one nation Tory. A paternalistic duty of the rich to look after and provide for the poor, but often to provide opportunity rather than money handouts, socialist style. State-sponsored social reform to counteract the idea of the permissive society. So the liberal view, perhaps, of, let's say, abortion, a really hot topic today and for many years. A liberal view in the 60s would be, free love, have children outside of marriage, not a problem. A conservative view would be much more, well, marriage is one of the pillars of society, and we need to deal pretty harshly with women who become pregnant outside of marriage. No real thought about the men getting them pregnant, but anyway. Restrictions on laissez-faire capitalism. So not unbridled tax hikes. So for example, allowing the entire country to fall apart during COVID would not have been an option. So provision of furlough. Problems at the moment to do with the cost of energy, etc. War in Ukraine, Russia. So state intervention from one of the former chancellors, Rishi Sunak, in terms of money towards electricity bills, that kind of thing. So in a sense, One Nation conservatives support this idea of Keynesian economics. Check out John Maynard Keynes, the early 20th century economist, who argued, in a sense, almost you've got to speculate to accumulate. You've got to invest money in order to stimulate the economy to produce jobs and therefore taxpayers. And then your hard right, or your new right rather, conservatists. So atomization of society, a society of self-interested individuals, maximal individual freedom, minimal tax, minimal government spending, deregulation, cutting up rules and red tape. We see a lot of this in the Leave EU campaign, didn't we? Under the guise of so-called sovereignty. Privatisation, private property, minimal government welfare, minimal government, minimal welfare by dint of that. Tough on law and order, strong national defence, low immigration, immigrants that are here to provide the services we need, not just unbridled immigration. Again, really taps in, doesn't it, this, to the EU, the Brexit referendum of 2016, and a lot of the arguments then, and I think that are very much going on in the Conservative Party of Britain today, of the United Kingdom today. So traditional social values as well. Key thinkers there to know about: Ayn Rand and the American Robert Nozick, or Nozick too. So more on those key thinkers. You need to know 5 for the Edexcel spec. Thomas Hobbes is the first, chronologically, furthest back in time. Born in 1588, the year of the Spanish Armada, no less. Lives right through to 1679, so imagine that life as an adult. You're going from sort of divine right of kings under the James I, Charles I, the Stuarts, the beheading in January 1649 after the Second Civil War of King Charles I, the establishment of a republic under Oliver Cromwell, and Richard Cromwell, and then the restoration of Charles II. So fascinating period. Hobbes argues on human nature that individuals are inherently selfish and ruthless, and that the government should exist to provide law and order, full stop, period. Society itself is created and curated, kept going, by the state, and the economy can only really exist through state protection. Interesting. We move on to Edmund Burke. Burke lived 1729-1797, so you know the majority of the 18th century. Burke argues that humans desire but can never achieve perfection, that the state is organic but aristocratic, so hierarchy. Society is based on small communities, and he was really in favour of the market, free markets, laissez-faire. Michael Oakeshott, the only one nation conservative philosopher for you to research for your A Level Ideologies questions. Oakeshott lived from 1901 to 1990, so pretty much the whole of the 20th century. His view that humanity should be free but within structures, government should be by tradition and pragmatism, humanity depends on local communities, and that free markets need to be moderated. He is a straight, for me, perhaps a little biased, but he is a straight down the wicket, middle of the road, one nation conservatist thinker, and very much you might call it a good guy if you are a sort of centre, conservative centrist. Then we move to the right, and to people who've doubtless inspired the likes of Rees-Mogg, and those that adopt a more new right conservatism. Ayn Rand, the only female of the 5 conservative philosophers you need to know about. Ayn Rand lives 1905 to 1982. She argues humans should be guided by rational self-interest and self-fulfillment. That's the motive. The government should have a really minimal role of upholding the law and order, crime and punishing crime, and national security, and that's it. Society, she believes, does not exist. There is simply a mass of individuals out there. So, you know, Thatcherism perhaps inspired by this, and free markets for the economy with no state intervention whatsoever. And finally, Robert or Bob Nozick, 1938 to 2002, an American political philosopher. Human nature, he argues, is self-interested and interested in self-ownership. The state passes public works to the private sector. Society, well, a society should promote individual self-fulfillment, and that's it. And that the economy should really be a collection of private enterprises and companies, that there should be really no public sector, and that the state exists merely to be a kind of referee or arbiter between private companies. Anyway, hopefully that's all very useful for you in terms of a bit of background on conservatism, and yeah, very best of luck with your exams.